The trial key is the most unique loot for the trial chambers, and the entire structure points to them being a way to unlock the potential of it. Its function, however, remains hidden, with Mojang saying nothing about what it will do in the final update. This has made it a fun source of speculation within the Minecraft community, and there are big ideas, small ideas, and honestly a whole lot in between. And so here are the 5 most likely scenarios that I see from least to most exciting. There are some base truths we need to get out of the way before any of this, and that is that you do not just get one trial key, you can get lots of them, and that means that it's not something that is used once and then never again, but also they are renewable. If you choose to wait 30 minutes, a trial spawner will give you more of them, and so not only does it stack, but also you could theoretically have an infinite number. This is not to say you could use an infinite number of them. The IF Ender is a great example of an item that really has a limited use past 12. However, this is to say that they do intend for you to use more than one, and finally, it is somewhat rare. It is not going to be as common as throwing a snowball or an ender pearl based on how uncommon they're choosing to make it. We can also base this on the fact that it's very heavily tied into the trial spawner, which is where our first theory of what this is going to come from. This is the least exciting, but perhaps the most likely if you're a cynic. There is a clear link between the trial spawner and the trial key. So what is the most likely thing? What if the trial key just allows you to activate the spawner early? A lot of people love the trial spawners, not just because they give you fun loot and they give you the potential for these keys, but also because you get the actual loot from killing the mob itself. If you want to find a lot of slimes easily, or a lot of skeletons or spiders, being able to go to one of these trial spawners might just be a great way. This is something that would be extra validated if the breeze came along with its own drop. What if the trial key really is something so simple that just ties into the trial spawner? It's something you should be thinking about, and if you're the type of person who likes to believe that the easiest or lowest effort version of something is the most likely, then this is a good theory, and indeed, if you want to believe that Mojang are lazy, this would be the laziest implementation, I guess, besides leaving it useless. However, I would say that the big counterpoint is that Mojang will rarely add something to the game, specifically mention that it doesn't have a use yet, and then give it something which is so incredibly minor and not really tied into anything and doesn't really have a use, unless they're going to make the trial spawner significantly more valuable and make it so you're not just using one of these keys to get 7 bones. Then I think that this is not a great theory. It is possible that the breeze rods will change everything, but I think it's much more likely, if you're going for the low effort solution, that it's a slightly higher effort low effort solution, which of course is the option to unlock the door, or rather to lock the door, you might say, because the key could be a great opportunity to bring in locks to Minecraft. When the copper door was first revealed, it had somewhat of a lock looking texture on it, and so when the game was first introducing it, it seemingly decided to ignore that and instead make the copper door just a version of a wooden door. This means you open it and shut it with your fist, and it does nothing else, which is bizarre, because if Mojang were just going to have a retextured door that could age over time, it wouldn't make a sense to just go for the wooden door as the version you base this on, but instead the other metallic door, the iron door. This would be activated by redstone, and again, it would take no extra effort. You just copy over the code from that iron door, except what if they're going for something different? Copper seems to work very different to other metal blocks, and indeed the copper bulb is very fun because unlike the redstone lamp, which requires a constant source of redstone to be turned on, the copper bulb actually turns on and off as you throw pulses through it. What if the copper doors could work the same, where instead of being locked or unlocked just by the redstone current, instead the redstone current would allow you to lock and unlock the door. In other words, you would throw a redstone pulse through the door, and it then allows you as the user to select whether you want it locked or not. This is something that makes a lot more sense, and honestly, I've always felt the iron door is so janky for just immediately opening. What sense does it make that magically having a tiny bit of redstone in there causes it to open? I think this vaguely makes sense for the redstone lamp because electricity requires a constant source of power, but the way that doors work in the real world, or say elevators, is you don't just turn on an elevator and it starts magically going up. It waits for the user to do something, the same with basically every other door that we have in the real world, and so the copper door could be a great way to have this as an end user, but also they could use this to make the trial chambers much more interesting. You could have to fight some spawners to unlock other rooms, to eventually unlock other rooms to say that you completed the entire thing. This would be a great opportunity to add a bigger boss room, perhaps you could say, which is a very good theory, but instead the trial key could be used for something even simpler, a loot room, or even simpler yet, a loot chest, because Minecraft said that when they were working on the Deep Dark update, they really wanted to have these stone chests. They showed off concept art many times, and it was one of the great ideas they did have to abandon. However, the Deep Dark update was also where they took a blind mob they were going to add to the Nether and turned it into the Warden, and so in the same way that we see old ideas recycled that didn't quite work in one spot, we could see these stone chests repurposed, and instead of being a stealthy mechanic where you go from place to place making sure you get the keys for them, instead it is a reward-based mechanic where if you do a good enough job, you can unlock these chests. Obviously, this raises the question of, well, if the chests are just lying around, what stops you just opening them or breaking them? And it's not that we don't have unbreakable items that drop nothing already, why not just add another one of them to the game? This would allow them to add whatever form of new loot they are considering, maybe an enchantment, maybe a new type of gear, maybe just a brand new weapon or item that you would really want, and rather than have it being locked behind randomness, as the ancient city sort of works, instead it is you keep throwing keys into the chest until you get what you want. It does feel a little bit loot boxy if you look at it the wrong way, but as obviously this is something you get entirely inside of Minecraft, and so it could be an incredibly fun mechanic. You throw the key in the chest and who knows what you get, and then you would be encouraged to go to the trial spawners every half an hour to see what else might come out of it. This is one of the best ideas if we're talking about fun mechanics, but obviously this could go up another level where there could be a loot room, and then instead of unlocking just a single chest, you could unlock an entire room with all of the goodies that would come along it. This is an incredible idea if you want to be like a dragon hoarding your gold, but you could also make these rooms upgrade in difficulty based on the number of trial keys required. I think whatever challenges they're going to put in, it's going to be something that requires multiple keys, so instead it could be that you need 5 keys to enter this room, or maybe you need somewhere between 1 and 9, and that determines the quality of the loot you're getting from this particular structure. I do think though it's more likely if they're going to go for a whole new room that they go instead for an idea of a boss room. Indeed, I think it's likely that Minecraft has some big plan for this, because take a look at a trial chamber. You'll notice one room which stands out above all of the rest, and it's this one right here. It's notable because it not only has 3 separate chests filled with very good loot, it has a whole separate Easter egg with the vents that everyone's loving because it's the first official use for crawling. There's also a second version of this secret that you can access down there with a bed and an additional chest. Basically, this is the room that has all of the goods and none of the bads, and also it's a room which is called an entrance, which makes some people think that it's going to be an entrance into the structure, but makes me think this is going to be the entrance to something else entirely. This right here looks like a vault door, which could be the sealed vault door to the outside, although what would be the point of having an entrance to a structure you have to dig into underground? Instead, no, I think there is something grand they have planned after this, and indeed, what could that grand plan be? Well, I'm glad you asked. I think a boss room, or at least some higher end, more challenging chamber is much more likely, but to keep things simple, let's just say it is the trial chamber's boss. This could be as simple as just a raid, but you know, with breezes and skeletons and zombies, or it could be something as complicated as a wither fight or an ender dragon fight, but I believe that by using some, indeed, there is a chiseled copper block right here, maybe it'd be replaced with something else. By simply using the keys on this, you would be able to access a brand new type of chamber where you could fight the real end of it. Right now, when you go through the trial chambers, you'll notice that most of the rooms are of similar difficulty. Yeah, some of them are a bit harder than others because they have different traps or different mobs, but for the most part, most of the challenges are about the same, but there could be one ultimate challenge which really everything else is leading up to. Rather than going, oh, look at this, there's a lot of staircases down here, rather than leading to a big challenge which eventually results in a, just a single boring stray room again, instead there could be a challenge which goes to a new level entirely. What would that challenge be? I think we could speculate endlessly, but I think to give my own personal guess, I think they could have any form of brand new constructed mob, because instead of it having to fit in the game lore-wise, it could be some form of like conjuring made up by the magic of the trial chamber, and so they have a lot more freedom in the same way they did when they made the Elder Guardian, which in my opinion is a pretty fun piece of mob put together. Speaking of things that are fun to put together, you ever noticed how the trial chambers have scaffolding, so you can actually like scaffold your way up and down? I've always thought that's clever. Speaking of things that I think are clever though, I think it's important we spend at least a moment acknowledging the fact that, yeah, although, like a boss might seem like it's the most optimistic goal, there is another link that many people have been making, and I can't help but feeling myself drawn to, and it's the link between the trial chambers, a deep slate structure. You'll notice that there's deep slate all around this place, and there obviously is in the deep slate lair, but if I can't help but spotting, the link between this and the only other structure you find exclusively in the deep slate lair, the ancient city. It seems as though there's some weird link between these places, even if it is just that they're only found in the right two layers, because they very much are very polar opposite approaches to the same idea. In this place, you've got to be sneaky and make sure that you don't alert the warden, whereas in the trial chambers, you have to go in very much guns blazing and you have to fight things head on. There is no other way to beat a trial chambers, whereas very much there is no other way to beat an ancient city than to avoid the warden or to be so ridiculously OP that it doesn't matter if he's there, but you'll always have an easier time avoiding a fight here, whereas in the trial chambers, you'll always have an easier time going specifically in for the fight. This leads to an interesting dichotomy, right? Because the trial keys do come in large quantities, and so what else comes in large quantities and has a confusing name that has people wondering what it could be? Well, I think if we just look up a little bit and try not to get darkness effect while we're there, I think you'll notice that there's this big frame, a big portal you could say, in fact a big portal Minecraft would say, and so you might argue that these trial keys would go perfectly. Man, what are you doing right up here by the portal? You are trying to get me killed, aren't you? I mean, literally you are, but oh no. That was a bad idea. I didn't realize there was a second one. Okay, I'm just gonna punch this one too, and then after that's gone, there'll be no one left to complain. Problem solved. So I've decided to leave this place very quickly. No reason why. Don't worry about it. I'm just gonna join you back with some lovely B-roll. This theory seems like it's the most out there, but consider this. Is the ancient city doomed to have an empty portal forever, or is there some plan which they are going to have at some point? Consider that Minecraft plans 4 updates in advance, usually they say, with the 4th being the least concrete and the soonest one being the most concrete. This would make it quite likely that somewhere in the 4 update plan after 1.19, they had something about this ancient city plan. And obviously, I think it is important to reference that even though this is the least likely plan, I think it's almost a guaranteed no chance of seeing a new dimension, if only because the amount of work it would require would be ridiculously large. It would be the easiest way to win over the Minecraft fanbase if you can make a good 4th dimension that people have a real reason to go to, but I think unlike the Nether and the End, it's harder to find an actual niche for that 4th dimension, and instead it might be more valuable doing something within your existing world. So this could be a tie-in to the boss or the loot idea of like, go and open this place and find something incredible, but it could be something even better, and as long as it's valuable in the late game, it totally makes sense. What if it was fast travel between any 2 linked lit portals? This would be an even more powerful thing than the Nether, because the Nether can link anywhere you want to, but it does it quite slowly. You have to switch dimension, you have to go for a long walk or horse ride or boat or minecart, and then you have to exit the portal you want to, and even then it's got some clunk to it. What if you could have a much faster version of this, going into one portal and near immediately loading up in another? This would solve many of the problems that people have with longer term worlds, namely that stuff gets further and further away. 10,000 blocks might be a 5-minute round trip if you really time it, but once you get to 15 or 20,000 blocks to find new terrain, things get really tricky to realistically want to look for, and if you just had an ancient city portal that could take you to a new area, that would be something incredible. Indeed, I believe there are all sorts of great ideas for this, and I've heard quite a few of them, but if you have one that you're thinking of right now that you think I haven't mentioned, please do mention it in the comments down below, because it's my favorite thing to theorycraft, and although I think it's the least likely of these 5 ideas, it's something I can't stop thinking about. I guess I should also mention, while I'm here, the trial chambers could also possibly have some really fun electricity mechanics. It's also entirely possible that they are going to turn copper into something entirely new altogether, and it's also possible that the trial key is going to do magical things all in its own right, like the Eye of Ender does, but I think that these have been the 5 most likely potentials, and now all we have to do is sit and wait. We are currently in an off week from Mojang. They are taking a little bit of a break from doing things, which is understandable, and we're expecting to see a batch of content before the new year, and then after the new year, there are quite a few months before the update comes out. Let's hope that we see some fun things in some of that. For now though, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing, because that is a great way to see my latest videos. I'm currently working on a guide to not just the trial chambers, but every single structure in Minecraft and how to take them on in a very easy way with very early game loot. It's something that I think might be valuable for a lot of people who like structures like me, and if you subscribe, you just might see it on your homepage. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.